And with that said, we want to welcome Mr. Bob Chapman, the international forecaster, to the mic. And welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I regret to inform you that you're cutting out very badly.
That's typical with the black-booted tugs. That's very typical with the black-booted tugs, and we'll see what we can do about overcoming that as we get the show down the road. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, you still got cutouts, though. It'll go, and then it'll cut out, and then it'll go, and so on.
Well, we'll just figure out what the problem is out here, and we'll that out to everybody. We have some great questions for you already from the Marine Corps chapter, and the things I think out, Mr. Chapman, is the international forecaster that you sent out the other day was probably one of the better ones here in the sense of what you're putting up and letting people know about this disgusting out here. And the question from one of the Marines out there, if you can hear this question, why in the war, the financial system going to, and how is it going to collapse?
Well, I couldn't hear it all, but was the question, when is it going to collapse?
How is the system going to collapse in the future?
Well, I think we're in the stages of collapse. It began a long time ago, and as I've said on the program, I believe what we're seeing, this collapse scenario, was something that was deliberately created, and it is the only way that the Illuminists who are in power behind the scenes can force Western Europe and the United States to accept world government, is to pauperize them. And that's what's going on. I think the market's going to go down considerably. How long it will take remains to be seen. I think it's going to happen soon. I think the bond market will eventually pull away and yields will go higher in the real market, even though the Federal Reserve is lending money to financial institutions at zero interest rates, and that lending at zero interest rates is costing the taxpayer money because the interest that's paid out is interest that wouldn't be received by the Fed in behalf of the government. We'll take J.P. Morgan as an example. They borrow money and don't pay anything for it. They buy U.S. Treasuries yielding 3%, which is a 10-year note. And so they have free, untaxed profits of 3% on money that they have that they don't have to pay interest on, that was created by the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation, out of thin air. Now, it's being done so that they can make money, so they can take the gains on their books to offset the losses that they incurred gambling in the world markets. And what they're doing is they're writing off about 2/3 of the debt in each quarter, and they are claiming 1/3 of the gains that are not used to offset that debt as gains in earnings. And this is going on among all the big lenders. At the rate that they're going, generally speaking, it'll take 20 or 30 years to write it off. But they don't care. But they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you what they're doing. The only place you're going to get this information is from someone like me, and unfortunately, there's not enough me's around in the world to tell everybody. And that's why I'm happy to be on here every week for the last 5 years or so, telling the people the truth about what governments are doing. And Europe has the same problem. If you notice, the dollar had a big rally over the last 6 months, and on the USDX, which is 6 currencies versus the dollar, it had gone down to 74. It went from 74 to 89. It turned around, and today it closed at 82. I think it's going back to 74, and technically it's dreadful. It could go lower than that. And so the rally that you've seen in the dollar is essentially over. The euro will stay where it's at, between 119 approximately, 118.50 on the bottom, and perhaps 129.30 on the top. And it'll trade in that range probably for several months until Germany decides, as a key member of the Eurozone, that it would be better to write off and have the 5 nations in trouble default on part of their debt now, rather than lose it all, because the German banks and the German government is holding a lot of that paper. In fact, they're supposed to write off $325 billion before this year is over. And if they do that, the haircut, so to speak, on the default would probably be 2/3 would be lost, and the countries would have to pay off 1/3 of the debt that is remaining. But I think if they do that, then they'll probably break up the euro, and I think that they'll go back to their old currencies, and I think Germany will be very happy about that. They won't do this again. And what will happen after that is that the powers behind government will try to institute as a world currency, not in each country, but for world trade, the SDR, which is backed by nothing, the special drawing right, which is issued by the IMF, which to me is no better than any other currency, nor no better than the dollar. And what they'll do, I think, is fix on a floating basis the rates of each currency versus the SDR. And they will also go forward, in all probability, with default among nations. And I think this is where all this is headed.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because it's basically the sign of the times. I have a question. One thing that came to me before the show was, please ask Mr. Chapman about the small banks in America that may end up closing, and why are they having to close when there was a package out there where larger CPP banks which have already repaid the taxpayers their money, and how can they report major profits? Can he explain that to us?
Well, the answer, I can't. And the reason why is they have rules that I don't know about that allows them to report these humongous profits. And one of the things that they're all doing is keeping 2 sets of books, if you can believe that. And that's all the lending institutions, the banks, the Wall Street, the insurance companies, the transnational conglomerates, and they're doing the same thing in Europe as well. And, of course, that's insanity. And those earnings are not real. And the small banks, it is the intention under this new Financial Regulations Act, which I understand was, I guess, passed today, which is a disaster for the American people, because it makes the Federal Reserve a private corporation, all-powerful in things financial. They'll take over the SEC, the CFTC, the FDIC, a new agency of consumer protection, and an oversight committee that is no more, no less than a group of Charlie McCarthys. And if those of you can remember, Charlie McCarthy was a dummy, and that's what they'll be. and I'm showing my age here. But anyway, that's what they're going to do. And they want to nationalize all the banks and have maybe 6 or 10 or 20 banks, and that's it. They want to put all the rest of them out of business. And they will do it because our Congress has been paid off. And that's why you have to throw all of them out of office next time they run in November. Because if you don't, this is your last chance to get back to your government. If we can get some people in there who do what we want them to do, rather than doing what they're getting paid for by the bankers in Wall Street, then we got a chance. Otherwise, if we can't do that, it is not going to be good.